Welcome to my live teaching learning session of BECE 133 Principles of Macroeconomics. In previous sessions, we had discussed about introduction to macroeconomics, national income accounting, and national income. In today's session, we will discuss national income determination. National income determination. How national income is determined. National income accounting has different methods like value added method, income method, and expenditure method from which we can calculate national income. We have studied about national income aggregates like GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP, 4 at market price and 4 concept at factor cost and real GDP, potential GDP, actual GDP, nominal GDP, all these concepts you have studied in previous sessions. So, in today's session, we will discuss national income determination in an open economy with government. It means national income, how it is determined, what are the different approaches of the determination of national income, and what are the components of national income determination. National income can be determined in a two-sector economy. National income can be determined in a three-sector economy, which is known as government sector economy. And national income can be determined in a four-sector economy. Four-sector economy is known as open economy, in which role of government and external sector or rest of the world all are included. So, how national income is determined in a three-sector economy and in a four-sector economy and in a two-sector economy, all these concepts we will discuss in today's session. So, let us start from first topic. In this session, fiscal policy in Keynesian model. You know that Keynes, J.M. Keynes is very famous economics to introduce macroeconomics. And in this fiscal policy, there are two types of policy in any economy. One is monetary and other is fiscal. Monetary policy is generally related with RBI because RBI introduced monetary policy, RBI launched monetary policy, and the tools of monetary policies are bank rate, open market operation, cash reserve ratio, SLR, repo rate, reverse repo rate, and qualitative instruments like margin requirements, moral suasion, rationing of the credit, and direct action. But fiscal policy is made by government. And fiscal policy, what is the meaning of fiscal policy? What are the tools of fiscal policy? Fiscal policy is used where government play very important role. According to Keynes, at present, no one economy is without the interference of the government. It means if we want to run smoothly all the economic activities in any economy, then government should play very important role. And without government interference, no one economy can work smoothly. So, in this fiscal policy, Block 3, Unit 6, Fiscal Policy in Keynesian Model, in this we will study about all these topics like introduction of fiscal policy, government sector, automatic stabilizer, government budget, balanced budget multiplier, how it is calculated, and net export function. Net export function is generally exist in open economy and in a four sector economy. So, what is the meaning of fiscal policy? As you know that fiscal policy is made by government of India. So fiscal policy refers to a policy concerning the use of state treasurer or the government finance to achieve the macroeconomic goals. Or, in other words, we can say that fiscal policy is that policy in which government can change its taxation and public expenditures program intended to achieve the set targets. Or fiscal policies related with public revenues, public expenditures, public debt, and budget. So government can use its expenditures, revenue programs to produce desirable effect on national income, output level, and employment level. So, fiscal policy, in short, we can say that fiscal policy is that policy which is made by government of India, and in this policy, the main instruments are public revenue, public expenditure, public debt, and government budget. All these instruments are the components of fiscal policy. Now, next is fiscal policy is more successful in controlling depression because in each and every economy, business cycles like boom, recession, depression, and recovery. These are the four stages of business cycle. And these stages like boom, recession, depression occurs during time to time. So, fiscal policy is very successful in controlling depression period. Fiscal policy does not provide a complete substitute for sound monetary policy because both policies are complementary to each other. No one is substitutable. If we want to achieve set targets of these policies, then we must have to use these policies instrument together. And if we use both the policies are coexist in the economy, both the policies work together, then we can achieve more successfully all the set targets of the economy. So, fiscal policy is not the substitute of monetary policy. It's a complementary of monetary policy because both are necessary to the fulfill the growth of the economic target, and both the policies are very necessary to achieve set targets. So the effect of fiscal policy are more direct as it involves shaping of the tax structure, determination of the amount of tax revenue. There are two types of tax. One is direct tax, other is indirect tax. Direct taxes are those taxes which are imposed by the government on those person who directly pay taxes to the government. They can't be shiftable. It means in case of direct tax, incidence of tax and impact of tax falls on same person. Impact means first burden of tax and incidence means last burden of the tax. When both the burden of tax, first and last, falls on same person, that is called direct tax. And in case of indirect tax like GST or sales tax or VAT, in these indirect taxes, first burden of the tax falls on producer, and the last burden of the tax or incidence of tax falls on consumer. It depends upon how much burden will bear by consumer and how much burden will bear by producer. It depends upon elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply. So government always collect a revenue through taxable sources in which two types of taxes are included, direct and indirect, and some other non-tax revenue sources are also the major source of government revenues. And the government spend money for the development of the country people, for the development of the nation, for and government spends some money for non-development activities like welfare, for protecting or on defense and law to maintain law and order. Government spend lots of amount of their GDP. So all these are very necessary, and government spend always development and non-development activities. So in this case, government spend money. Public expenditures are very necessary to fulfill the set targets, and you know that one person expenditure is another person income. If government spend money, then public income will generate. So if government spend more money, then public income will generate more. Public When public get more income, their purchasing power will increase. Their income will increase, their purchasing power will increase. Due to increase in purchasing power, their demand will increase, and due to increase in demand, economy will producers will motivate, economy will grow, and producer will produce more goods and services. Employment opportunities will generate, income opportunities will generate, and economy will grow at a very faster rate. So fiscal policy impacts are very direct, and it is very necessary for achieving the goals of the economy. Now, next is public sector. In public sector, you know that fiscal policy is made by government, and in government sector, we include central government, state government, local government. Because in India, here federal government system exists, in which three types of government included. One is central government, which play very important role and which have more power of collecting revenues, and next is state government, and last is local government, in which municipal corporation, municipal uh, MCDs, and containment board, all these things are included in local government. So all these are known as public corporations or public sector. Now next is government always make budget, and budget means a systematic record of all economic transactions of revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year or financial year. What are the source of government revenue? How does the government allocate its revenue? What is the difference between deficit and debt, and why does running a deficit matter? So government budget can solve all these questions, all these queries. Government budget is that budget which shows the statement of income and expenditures which actually work for the economy, because government collect revenues through taxable and non-taxable sources. Government spend this money for the development of the country, and government, if in any case, public expenditures are more than public revenue, then government can take borrowings from internal sources as well as from external sources. That is called public debt. Public debt is a very broader concept in which both debts are included: internal sources borrowings and external sources borrowing. And next is budget. You know that budget is the composite of all these things, and budget comprises public expenditure, public revenue, and public debt. And budget may be favorable, may not be. And if revenues and expenditures both are equal, then it will be known as balanced budget. And if expenditures are more than revenues, then budget will be in deficit. And if revenues are more than expenditures, then budget will be in surplus. So budget may be categorized into two broad categories. One is balanced budget and other is unbalanced budget. Balanced budget occurs when public expenditures and public revenues both are equal. But unbalanced budget may be further two types. One is surplus budget and other is deficit budget. Surplus budget is that budget when public revenues are more than public expenditures, and deficit budget shows that government is spending more amount of money for public development and welfare of the nation, and revenue sources are less, then budget will be in deficit. And debt is another thing. Debt means borrowing. Government can borrow money from external and internal sources to compensate this deficit budget. So this is government budget. Now next is national income determination. We can determine national income in a three sector economy in which government play very important role, and in a four sector economy where farm sector, household sector, government sector and rest of the world, all the sectors are exist. So introducing government, when we introduce government, so government play very important role. What government play a role in the economy? Government collect revenues through taxable sources, and government always make budget, and budget balance is equals to always T minus G. Here T refers to taxes and G refers to government expenditures. So taxes means government revenue and G is government expenditure, which is always autonomous in nature. T may be greater than G, T may be less than G, T may be equals to G. When T is greater than G, it means taxes are more than government expenditure, then budget will be in surplus. If taxes are less than government expenditures, then budget will be in deficit. If taxes are equals to government expenditure, then budget will be in balance. When taxes are greater than government expenditure, it means positive government saving because government has huge amount of revenues and government expenditures are less, then government has more power to save money. In this case, saving will be positive. And if taxes are less than government expenditure, in this case, government saving will be negative because expenditures are more, but the source of revenue is less. So budget balance we can estimate with the help of using this formula T minus G. T is taxable source and G is government expenditure. Now next is government budget balanced between government budget show the balance in between of receipts and expenditures. Receipts means revenues. Receipts may be capital receipts. Receipts may be revenue receipts. And expenditures may be capital expenditure and expenditure may be revenue expenditure. So government budget show the balance in between of receipts and expenditures. And if both are equal, then budget will be called balanced. Now next is what is the balanced budget multiplier? Balanced budget multiplier show the change in government spending and taxes. In this, here three words have some meaning like balanced. It means when government expenditures are equals to government revenues, then budget will be called balanced. And balanced budget multiplier shows that change in government spending multiplier and change in tax multiplier, the summation of both these multiplier will be always equals to unity or equals to 1. So an equal change in government spending and taxes which changes aggregate demand by the amount of the change in government spending. In this case, budget will be in balance and multiplier is a concept which shows multiple effect or multiple change in any concept. Either it may be investment multiplier. Investment multiplier shows the change in level of income due to change in investment. And another concept is employment multiplier. If we give employment opportunities to any person, then his income level will increase multiply. That is known as employment multiplier. And tax multiplier shows the change in income due to change in tax rate. If tax rate increases, income level will fall. If tax rate falls, income level will rise. It means income level will definitely change due to change in the rate of tax. So, tax multiplier shows the change in income due to change in taxation. It is the ratio of delta Y upon delta T. And the government spending multiplier shows the change in income level due to change in government expenditure. If government spend more money, then income level of the economy will rise. So government spending multiplier is equals to delta Y upon delta T. Delta Y is change in income and delta G is change in government expenditure. When we are talking about government spending multiplier, then we will take delta Y upon delta G, and if we take tax multiplier, then formula will be it is the ratio of delta Y upon delta T, and the sum of government spending multiplier and tax multiplier will always be equals to 1 or unity. That is called balanced budget multiplier. Now next is balanced budget multiplier. In this formula is K. K denotes multiplier. B is balanced budget. It is the sum of KG. K is multiplier. G is government spending plus KT. K is multiplier. T is taxation. And KB we can denote by 1 upon MPS because its formula is 1 upon 1 minus MPC, and 1 minus MPC is always equals to MPS. So we can write 1 upon MPS plus tax multiplier formula is minus MPC upon MPS. And the LCM of MPS is MPS is MPS, and above we can write 1 minus MPC. 1 minus MPC is always equals to MPS. When MPS both are equal, then both will cut and the answer will be equals to 1. So balanced budget multiplier is always equals to unity or equals to 1. And with the help of this formula, we can derive the value of unity and we can show how balanced budget multiplier works. Now next is balanced budget multiplier. If balanced budget multiplier, you know that government spending multiplier is always equals to 1 upon 1 minus MPC, and tax multiplier is always equals to minus MPC upon 1 minus MPC. And if we take the summation of 1 upon 1 minus MPC plus minus MPC upon 1 minus MPC, then 1 minus MPC upon 1 minus MPC, both the value will be equal, and if we cut both the values, then we can get 1. So balanced budget multiplier is always equals to unity. Now this is the national income determination. We can derive this curve, and balanced budget we can show with the help of this diagram. Here line is 45-degree line. 45-degree line always represent aggregate supply, and it has two components. One is consumption and other is saving. So y is equals to c plus s always show aggregate supply curve, and it always start from the origin, and it is a 45-degree line. And next is by balanced budget multiplier shows that if government spending increases, then income will increase multiply. And if government expenditures and government revenues both are equal, then budget will be in balance. So in this case, consumption line curve always start from the y-axis, because we know that consumption can never be zero. Consumption always start from y-axis, because autonomous consumption always exists at the minimum level of income or zero level of income. We will spend money on consumption. Either we can take borrowings from others, and because for survival, consumption is very necessary. So C1 and C2 is the consumption curve, And if government expenditure increases, then this line will shift to the upward and equilibrium point will be here, F point. In this case, when government expenditure increases by this ratio, then income level will increase multiply. That is called balanced budget multiplier. If both are equal, if the change in government expenditure and the change in level of income both are same, then budget will be in balance. So this is the diagram of balanced budget multiplier. Now next is automatic stabilizer. What is the meaning of this concept of automatic stabilizer? Automatic stabilizer means the tools which embedded in the economy that respond to the different phases of the business cycles. And it works automatically because they adjust without any action by the government or the president, and they serve as stabilizer to stabilize the economy, to make the situation of stability, and they serve as stabilizer because they limit the increase in real GDP during expansion and reduce the decrease in GDP during recession. So when it works automatically to stabilize the economy, to control the fluctuations of the economy, that is called automatic stabilizer. If government expenditures and government revenues automatically work, and if both works automatically, then it can manage and it can control the situation of recession and expansion. In case of expansion, if government expenditures fall automatically and tax revenues increases, and in case of depression or recession, government expenditures increases and tax revenue decreases, and if both works automatically to stabilize the situation of the economy, that is called automatic stabilizer. Next is automatic stabilizer refers to how fiscal policy instruments will influence the rate of GDP growth and help counter swings in the business cycles, because business cycles are wave-like fluctuations which occur during time to time, and business, because economy is dynamic, no one nothing is static in this world. So in business organization and any economy, these fluctuations, these business cycles occurs like boom, recession, depression, recovery. And if we want to stabilize the economy, we want to control these situations like expansion and depression or recession, then government policies tools or fiscal policies tools, if all these tools work independently or automatically to stabilize the situation of the economy, that is called automatic stabilizer. Now next is models for income determination in a two sector economy, in a three sector economy, and in a four sector economy. You know that national income can be determined with the help of these models. These models, you can describe this in a two sector economy, in a three sector economy, and in a four sector economy. In a two sector economy, we always take two sectors like household sector and firm sector. And in a three sector economy, we take firm sector, household sector, and government sector. And in a four sector economy, we take four sectors like household sector, firm sector, government sector, and external sector, which is known as rest of the world. All these sectors are very important because all these sectors can determine the national income determination. If we take only C plus I, where C plus I intersect C plus S curve, that is national income determination in a two-sector economy. If C plus I plus G line intersect C plus S line, that will be called national income determination in a three-sector economy. And if C plus I plus G plus net export line intersect 45-degree line or aggregate supply line, that will be known as national income determination in a four-sector economy. And national income can be determined with the help of two approaches. One is expenditure approach and other is saving and investment approach. So national income can be determined in a two-sector economy, in a three-sector economy, and in a four-sector economy. Now next is national income determination in four-sector model, or how national income is determined. Its first method is aggregate expenditure method. Here, one line is in this diagram. Here, 45-degree line is showing aggregate supply curve. And here, Y is equals to AE. Y is income is equals to aggregate expenditure, and its line is always 45-degree line. Another line which start from the y-axis, which is showing two-sector economy, which can show two-sector economy model, three-sector economy model, and four-sector economy model. It depends upon that in equation. If we are taking only two components like C and I, then it will show two-sector model. If we take C plus I plus G, then it will show three-sector model. And if we take C plus I plus G plus net export or export minus import, it will show four-sector model. So in a four-sector economy, national income is always determined where aggregate demand is equals to aggregate supply. But in aggregate demand, we take four components of aggregate demand like C, I, G, and net export. C is consumption expenditure, I is investment expenditure, G is government expenditure, and X is export, and M is import. Export minus import is equals to net export. So Y is equals to AE line will always be a 45-degree line, and another line which is start from the y-axis, not from the origin. It is showing aggregate demand line, and aggregate demand curve can never start from the origin, can never be zero, because consumption can never be zero. And these are the components of aggregate demand like C, I, G, and net export. In a two-sector economy, only we will take C plus I. In a three-sector economy, C plus I plus G we will take. And in a four-sector economy, C plus I plus G plus net export. If all these components we take together, then aggregate expenditure or aggregate demand will be called that. In a four-sector economy, we can determine national income with the help of these two curves. One is 45-degree line and another is aggregate demand line. Where both curve intersect each other, equilibrium point is determined, and if we join this line to x-axis, then national income will be determined OY. And if Y is greater than aggregate demand, because you know that disequilibrium situation may occur if income line or aggregate supply is more than aggregate demand, then what will happen? If supply is more than demand, then unsold stock will remain left and the producer will discourage to produce more. In this case, production will fall, employment will fall, and income will fall. Then again, we will move towards on the equilibrium point. And if aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, like point B is indicating that demand is more but supply is less. In this case, producer will encourage to produce more goods, production will rise, employment will rise, and further income will rise. It means actually equilibrium will always determine where aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve intersect each other. But sometimes disequilibrium situation may occur, and these situations are like at point D, supply is more than demand, and at this point B, here demand is more than supply. But if demand is more than supply or supply is more than demand, then we will move on that point where equilibrium is determined. So if income level is 800, means demand is more but supply is less, then we will move toward like or at E point, and then income level will be 1500. And if supply is more than demand, then 2500 income level is, but again we will went to this point, E point, and 1500 income level will be determined. So national income is always determined where aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve intersect each other. Now next is national income determination has two approaches. One is total expenditure approach or aggregate expenditure approach, and next is saving and investment approach, which is known as injection leakages approach. Injections are those variable which increases the level of income, and leakages are those variable which reduces the level of income. Injections are like investment is known as injection because it increases multiply the level of income, and exports are injection because when we export goods and services to abroad, then income will generate and then foreign currency will rise. And government expenditure is also an injection because if government spend money, then people income will generate. So injections are those variable which increases the level of income like I, G, and X. I is investment, G is the government expenditure, and X is export. And three variables which is known as saving, tax, and imports. These three are known as leakages. These three variables reduces the level of income. Like saving is leakages because if one person save money, then it will be good for that individual person. But if all country people save money, then whole country's income will fall because one person expenditure is another person income. If all country people save more, it means their expenditures will fall, their demand will fall, further production will fall, employment will fall, and income will fall, and again saving will fall. So if we take that whole country people are saving at macro level is bad. According to Keynes, there is a paradox of thrift, which is called that saving is good at micro level, at individual level, but saving is bad at macro level. And totality, if all country people save money, then income level will fall. So saving is a leakage. And imports are also leakages. When we import goods and services from rest of the world, then payment we have to give payment to the abroad. So in this case, our foreign currencies reserve will decrease and income level will also decrease. And taxes are also leakages because when government impose more taxes on producers or consumers, then their income level falls. So taxes are leakages, imports are leakages, savings are leakages. So injection and leakages approach can also determine the national income. Now next is according to Keynesian model of income determination, in case 1, where aggregate supply line, which is always 45-degree line, where aggregate supply line is equals to aggregate demand, where both curve intersect each other at E point equilibrium, national income determined, E is known as equilibrium point and the national income is OY0. And the level of income Y1 and Y2 are the different situations which shows disequilibrium and but the equilibrium point at this equilibrium point income will always be determined OY0. So national income, if we take case 1, if national income is smaller than Y0 like Y1, and in this case aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply. So at this point, demand is more but supply is less, then producer will encourage to produce more goods and services. In this case, the pressure falls on income and income will again increase from Y1 to Y0. And if supply is more than demand, then producer unsold stock will remain left. And in this case, producer will discourage to produce more, production will fall, employment will fall, income will fall, and further income falls from Y2 to Y0, then again we will reach on that equilibrium point where actually national income is determined. So national income is always determined where aggregate demand intersects aggregate supply line, which is always 45-degree line. Now next is now, four sector economy, the Keynesian model of income determination in a four sector economy, determination of equilibrium, income or output in a four sector economy in which rest of the world or foreign sector or external sector included, and the inclusion of foreign sector in the analysis influences the level of aggregate demand through the exports and imports of goods and services. Hence, it is necessary to understand the factors that influence the exports and imports. So, this is called four sector economy in which foreign sector included. Now, in four sector economy, net export function is very important concept. Net export function, what it shows? Net export function shows the relationship between net exports and the level of income in the economy, if other things remaining constant. And the factor which we assumed which remains constant along the net export function, what factors includes? One is the domestic price level, other is price level in other countries, third is domestic and foreign interest rate, next is foreign income level, next is exchange rates between the dollar and foreign currencies. So net export function shows the relationship between net export and the level of income. Generally, there is a negative or inverse relationship in between of level of income and net export. Because as well as income rises, our imports will also rise. But we assume that exports are autonomous, it remains always constant or same. So when exports remain same and imports increases due to increase in GDP or increase in level of income, and we will, if we take the difference between export and import, then in the beginning net export will be positive and falling, then net export will be zero, and at last net export will be negative. So net export curve is always downward sloping curve from left to right. It may be zero, may be negative, because exports are autonomous or constant. Only imports rises due to rise in level of income. So what factors assumed constant? Like domestic price level in other countries, domestic and foreign interest rate, foreign income level, exchange rate between the dollar and the foreign currencies. Now next is, here in this table, if GDP is 0, then net export, first of all, in first column we have taken GDP. For example, if GDP is increasing like 0, then 1000, then 2160, then 3000, 4000, and 5000. And exports, which remains always constant or autonomous, its value will remain same, like 540, 540, 540. We can take any other amount like 500 or 1000. And here we have taken like 540, which remains always constant. And imports, if we assume that import value is 0.25y, and 0.25y means we have to multiply 0.25 into the level of income, because imports depends upon the level of income. As well as income rises, GDP rises, our imports will also rise. So 0.25 multiplied by 0, then answer will be 0. If 0.25 multiplied by 1000, then import value will be 250. If 0.25 multiplied by 2160, then answer will be 540. Then if 0.25 multiplied by 3000, the value will be 750. Then if 0.25 multiplied by 4000, value will be 1000. And at last 0.25 multiplied by 5000, then the value will be 1250. Now how we can calculate net export? Net export is the difference between exports and imports. First of all, 540 minus 0 is equals to 540. Then 540 minus 250 is equals to 190. If 540, 540 both are same, net export will be 0. If 540 minus 750, it means export value is less than import value, then the net export will be negative. So net export is always a downward sloping curve, because in the beginning net export is positive but falling, then net export value will be 0, and at last net export value will be negative. And in first diagram, first we have taken export line, which is always constant or autonomous. It's a horizontal line or parallel to the x-axis curve. Import curve start from the origin, because the first value of import is 0, then import value is increasing. So import value will always start from the origin, and it is just upward sloping line where both curve intersect each other. It means export and import value both are equal. At this point, net export will be 0. And net export line is always downward sloping curve, and it may be touches to x-axis and may be negative, because net export in the beginning is always falling, then net export will be 0. When export and import both are equal, then net export will be 0. And when export value is less, import value is more, then net export will be negative. So in this situation, net export curve always lie downward. It touches to x-axis when it is 0, and it go beyond that, and it will become negative when imports are more than exports. So this is the net export, how net export can be calculated, and we can show with the help of this table and diagram. Next is, here we can also take another example, like real GDP is given 0 to 100, 400. Export always we will take constant. Import, if import equation is given, then we can put the value of income in this equation and find the value of imports. And net export is always the difference between export and import. And here net export is in the beginning falling, and but it is always positive, then its value will be 0, and at last net export value will be negative. Now next is, net export is the difference between export and import. Export represent foreign spending, on the US produced goods and services or any other country's produced goods and services. Imports are the portions of C, I, and G that are spent on goods and services produced abroad. Adding up all these components, then we can get GDP or income level. C plus I plus G plus net export. These are the components of GDP by spending method, and these are the main components of aggregate demand in a four sector economy. Now, next is non income determinants of net export. What are the factors which determine the net export function? You know that factors which we assumed along the net export function include: one is price level. Net export depends upon the price level of the foreign country. If price level is higher in our country and price level is lower in abroad, then our country product will become more expensive if price is higher in India and price is lower in abroad. It means when inflation occurs in our country, our price level is higher of our country's product. In this case, our exports will fall and imports will rise, and net export curve will shift to the left hand side. And vice versa situation also maybe exist. If our country's price less and in abroad price is higher, then our exports will rise, and in this case net export curve will shift to the right one. Same as interest rates. If interest rates are higher in India and lower in abroad, then foreigners will encourage to invest their money in India. So foreign currencies or money inflow will rise. If interest rates are higher in our country, then money inflow will rise in our country. And if interest rate is lower in our country and higher in abroad, then money outflow will rise. And if foreign countries' people income is higher than our country's people income, then if foreign GDP is more, then our exports will increase. Because if foreigners' income will rise, their purchasing power will also rise, and they will purchase or demand for more goods and services from our country. It means in this case, if foreign GDP increases, our net exports will rise, and in this case, net export curve will shift to the rightward, and vice versa. And exchange rate also affects net export curve, and it is the main cause of shift in net export function. If exchange rate, you know that exchange rate is that rate at which one country's currency can be converted into another country's currency. For example, $1 is equals to 80 rupees. If it is equals to 80 rupees, it means then if we want to take $1, then we must have to spend 80 rupees. If exchange rate increases, if our country is appreciated, it means our country's product will become more expensive. And if our country's product will become more expensive, then our exports will fall and imports will rise. In this case, net export curve will shift to the left hand side. And if our countries depreciate in terms of dollar, in this case our country's product will become more cheaper than rest of the world product. In this case our exports will rise and imports will fall, and net export curve will shift to the rightward. So exchange rate also affects net export function. And all these are the main determinant factors, and these are the main causes of shift in net export function. So in short, we can say that net export function can be shift either to the rightward or leftward, or right hand side or left hand side, but depends upon these factors like price level of the US or price level in other countries, interest rate here and abroad, foreign income level or foreign GDP, and exchange rate between the dollar and other foreign currencies. All these are the determinants of net export function. Now next is factors affecting of net export, real disposable income abroad. If there is a rise in income abroad, is likely to result in an increase in exports. For example, the US is one of the UK's main trading partner. If people in the US enjoy higher disposable income, they will buy more goods and services, some of which will come from the UK. And if real disposable income increases at home, in contrast, a rise in income at home may result in fall in exports. This is because firms may divert some products from the exports market to the home market to meet the rise in domestic demand. And government restrictions on free trade also affects net export. If government impose restrictions on international trade, a country's net export may rise if other countries' government remove trade restrictions. Like China, for example, might be able to export more steel to the USA if the US government remove tariffs. Tariffs means import duty on Chinese steel. Such a move would lower the price of Chinese steel on the US market, so make it much more price competitive. So these are the factors affecting net export. Now next is government expenditure multiplier. We can calculate government expenditure multiplier with the help of this formula 1 upon 1 minus MPC. Here MPC is showing the ratio of change in consumption due to change in level of income. And if MPC value is given 0.8, then we can calculate government spending multiplier by using this formula 1 upon 1 minus MPC. 1 upon 1 minus 0.8 is equals to 5. And tax multiplier is calculated by the help of this formula minus B upon 1 minus B. Here B is MPC, minus B means put the value of MPC, minus 0.8 upon 1 minus 0.8. Minus 0.8 is divided by 0.2, then answer will be minus 4. Tax multiplier is always in negative because tax is a leakage and government spending is an injection. That's why government spending multiplier value will be always in positive and tax multiplier value will be always lie in negative. And the balanced budget multiplier is the summation of government spending multiplier and the tax multiplier. If 5 plus bracket in tax multiplier value is minus 4, then value will be 1. So balanced budget multiplier is always equals to unity or equals to 1. Now next is conclusion. We can conclude from today's session that here we have discussed about how national income is determined in a two-sector economy, in a three-sector economy, and in a four-sector economy according to the Keynesian views. Because in macroeconomics, there is a great contribution given by J.M. Keynes or John Maynard Keynes. And according to Keynesian view of spending and output, Keynes argued that spending induced business firms to supply more goods and services. Hence, if total spending fell, then firms would respond by cutting back production. Less spending would lead less output, and less output would lead less employment opportunities. Less employment results less income, and less income means less growth of the economy, and vice versa. So, government expenditures always considered as an injection, not as a leakage, because one person expenditure is another person income. If government spend more money, then economy will respond favorably and production will rise, employment will rise, and further income will rise. So J.M. Keynes in his book The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, published in 1936, has used two methods for the determination of national income at a particular time. One is aggregate expenditure method and other is saving and investment method. So in this session, we have discussed these methods and how national income is determined in a two sector, like C plus I will be equation of aggregate demand. In a three sector, C plus I plus G will be the equation of aggregate demand. And in a four sector economy, C plus I plus G plus net export will be the equation of aggregate demand. And where 45-degree line intersects aggregate demand, national income is determined at that point. So, in this session, we have completed this fiscal policy or national income determination in an open economy with government. Thank you.